Signora Presidente dell'Università, Emma Marcegaglia, Massimo Rettore, Massimo Egidi, Professor Gian Domenico Musco, Presidente della Camera dei Deputati, onorevole Gianfranco Fini, Vicepresidente della Commissione Europea, Antonio Tajani, rappresentante degli studenti, Giuseppe Clemente, autorità, signore e signori. È un gran onore per me ricevere da questa prestigiosa università un riconoscimento così importante. Vorrei innanzitutto ringraziare la Presidente Emma Marcegaglia, il Rettore Massimo Egidi e il Professor Gian Domenico Musco per il conferimento di questa laurea honoris causa in diritto. Non è solo un onore per me, ma anche un segnale di incoraggiamento a continuare nel mio lavoro, nella costruzione di un'Europa più unita e quindi anche più preparata a giocare il suo ruolo nel mondo. Ogni volta che ho occasione di venire in Italia, mi sento a casa, in questo paese che dà lustro all'Europa, con la sua arte, la sua bellezza, e che tra qualche giorno festeggerà 150 anni di unità. Uno Stato giovane, ma di cultura antichissima. Colgo questa occasione per porgervi le mie più sentite congratulazioni. In questo momento, particolarmente significativo per l'integrazione europea, sono lieto di avere l'occasione di rivolgermi a un pubblico illustre, ai giovani che si formano in questa università e che, ne sono certo, avranno ruoli chiave nella società di domani. E soprattutto sono felice che ciò avvenga proprio in questa città nella quale è stato avviato il processo della costruzione europea. If you allow me, I will now turn to English. It's easier also for you. Ladies and gentlemen, you have honored me with this doctorate in law, so you'll understand I will speak about economy. Lawyers, by definition, are entitled to speak about anything. Not only because, as you, Professor, mentioned, the importance of rules for the economy, but also because it's a duty for those that are in law, in general, for those who have some kind of responsibility to try to have this comprehensive approach to our societies and our economies. Let's speak about economy. The impact of the crisis on our economies and societies has been far-reaching. It has been a huge shock for millions of citizens. Much of the progress made in the past 10 years has been wiped out. Our GDP fell by 4% in 2009. Our industrial production dropped 20% in less than 2 years, and the rate of unemployment rose to 10% of our active population. I'm speaking on average for the European Union member states. The crisis has made the task of securing future economic growth much more difficult. Europe's structural weaknesses have been uncovered. Even before the crisis, we were indeed lagging behind in some areas compared to our main economic partners and competitors. The impact of the crisis has also been a serious blow to confidence. Many investment plans, talents, and new ideas risk going to waste because of uncertainties, sluggish demand, and lack of funding. Our shared responsibility is to rebuild confidence. We need consumers who have the confidence and the means to spend. We need companies with the courage to invest in promising ventures and seek out new export markets, including in fast-growing economies. We need markets to be appeased and to continue to regain confidence in the euro area and in the European Union as a whole. In a word, we need trust in our ability to respond in a decisive and cohesive way to the crisis and to lay sound foundations for a prosperous and more stable future. Cicero said that salus populi suprema lex est. The good of the people is the highest law. The good of European citizens is indeed our highest law. It is at the core of our European project. This is the reason why we focus all our efforts on creating the right conditions to restore confidence for sustained, inclusive growth and job creation. Europe is now responding. We have understood how interdependent our economies are, and we have agreed that real European economic governance is not an option, but an imperative. This is a position that the European Commission has been defending for many years now, but let's be frank, some governments were still reluctant to accept. But now, it is not only those who are always defending the European integration. It was not only the so-called federalists. The markets are also demanding, as an imperative, more coherence, more policy economic coordination, stronger governance in the euro area and the European Union. I think now we are understanding and agreeing that our response to the crisis has to be comprehensive and clearly coordinated at European Union level, while, naturally, being adapted to each member state's diverse situation. Because we have very different situations, not only in the 27 member states, but even in the 17 members of the euro area. On the basis of proposals tabled by the Commission, we have started rebuilding confidence through fiscal consolidation efforts, combined with structural reforms, financial stabilization measures, and strengthens economic governance. These collective efforts would have been unthinkable only 2 years ago. And we are also working on improving the business environment through smart regulation to get rid of unnecessary bureaucracy that makes life difficult, especially for small and medium-sized companies. There are some good news coming. According to the Commission's last interim economic forecast, European economic recovery is taking shape amid better prospects for global economy and an upbeat European Union business sentiment. I'm speaking on average for the European Union. Real GDP growth is now estimated at 1.8% in the European Union, which is a slight upward revision compared to our autumn forecast. The recovery is expected to become more balanced towards domestic demand, which will result in more sustainable growth. And labor market conditions are showing signs of improvement. The unemployment rate, while still too high, and of course is extremely dramatic for all those and their families that are unemployed, but the unemployment rate has been almost stable since mid-2010. However, uncertainties remain high, and the recovery is still fragile and uneven among European member states. Our efforts cannot flinch, should not flinch. And Europe must do more. We have to finish the unfinished business. Our interconnected key objectives, fiscal consolidation combined with structural reforms, financial stabilization, and economic governance strengthening, remain at the very top of our to-do list to put Europe back on track towards sustainable and inclusive growth. Ladies and gentlemen, our first line of action is determined fiscal consolidation. Without fiscal consolidation, we'll spend our way into a new crisis. Without fiscal consolidation, there is no confidence. And without confidence, there is no investment and no job creation. Investors have to be reassured that ascending debt trajectories will be quickly reversed. So all member states must demonstrate their commitment to fiscal consolidation in line with their obligations under the Stability and Growth Pact. This is a matter of responsibility. In the European Union and in the euro area in particular, there cannot be solidarity without responsibility, nor responsibility without solidarity. This is the principle which is at the core of determined and coordinated action that we have taken to safeguard the financial stability in the euro area. It is on a shared commitment to responsibility and solidarity that rests the existence of the temporary European Financial Stability Facility, the EFSF, and of the permanent mechanism for stability, which will take over as from 2013. So we are creating new mechanisms of stability that were not anticipated by the Treaty of Lisbon. So we are adding new layers of governance to our union, especially in the euro area. And in fact, this commitment has been reaffirmed last Friday at the informal summit of the euro area member states. Over the last months, the Commission had continually stressed the need to enhance the effective financing capacity of the current fund and broaden its scope of activities. A few weeks ago, this still seemed impossible. In fact, there was a lot of controversy and even many criticisms against the Commission when we presented this idea in January. But now, all the heads of state and government of the euro area have agreed in principle on that direction. European leaders have agreed they will make sure the full amount is available. That is 440 billion euros for the current fund and 500 billion euros for its successor, the future permanent mechanism for stability. This is a major step forward, not only for the euro area, but for Europe as a whole. But let's be clear, fiscal tightening is not an end in itself. Taking the painful decisions that have been left for too long is the best way to make sure we avoid a jobless recovery. All the efforts made are meant to enhance our social market economy. And I also like to underline the word social. We have a market economy. We want it more competitive, but we want it to be inclusive. We should not try to follow the models of others. Certainly, we don't want some kind of growth we are seeing in other parts of the planet. Our initiatives are to restore confidence and growth for our social market economy, for our European model of society. It is a measure also of fairness towards young and future generations, which will not have to carry the burden of debt. And it is our duty to ensure that financial resources are allocated in the most efficient way to guarantee this sustainable and inclusive growth. Market perception of countries' vulnerabilities is also shaped by medium-term growth prospects. So fiscal consolidation also needs to be growth-friendly and to go hand in hand with structural reforms to improve growth potential, to invest in sectors of importance for the future, like research and innovation, is just as necessary. In the very good presentation made by the rector, in fact, highlighted with striking statistics that Europe indeed is doing well in science and research. But where we lag behind our competitors is in what we call innovation to market. And this, in fact, is one of the points of our Europe 2020 strategy, to make our research more efficient in terms of market innovation, in terms of new products and new services. So let's be clear. Fiscal consolidation, yes, but smart consolidation. And frankly speaking, it is not smart to cut in science, in education, and in culture. Ladies and gentlemen, our comprehensive 10-year strategy of structural reforms to boost growth and jobs creation, what we call the Europe 2020 strategy, puts together in a coherent framework economic reforms aimed at increasing productivity and labor force participation. It focuses on key areas where a mutual reinforcing mix of European Union and national efforts is needed: knowledge, innovation, energy efficiency, social inclusion. It introduces as well an enhanced economic surveillance in line with the treaty. We have now in place a new economic governance cycle, the so-called European semester. From now on, we look at each other's economies before decisions are made so we can coordinate ex ante. We can coordinate up front instead of trying to make corrections afterwards. The first European semesters will launch in January with the presentation of the Commission's annual growth survey, which sets out the priorities of the competitiveness strategy for the European Union and the euro area as a whole. Once again, this would have been impossible 2 or 3 years ago. Many member states were arguing, in terms of national sovereignty, that they could not discuss ex ante among themselves the plans for the budgets before they presented to the national parliaments. Of course, today, the crisis has shown how much we are interdependent. And as the Lisbon Treaty recognizes, the economic policy of a member state is a matter of interest, a matter of concern for all the European Union because we need to act together. So in fact, we are empowering national parliaments when the European leaders are ready to consider in a coordinated way the efforts they have to do to boost growth and job creation. Ladies and gentlemen, the European semester is part of a broader set of measures to reinforce economic governance. We are also putting in place a system to guarantee much stronger surveillance of the fiscal consolidation and to deal with harmful macroeconomic imbalances, including competitiveness divergences. These Commission proposals are currently under discussion by the Parliament and the European Council and should be decided before summer. And in fact, in the last Euro Area Summit last week, there was a consensus to reinforce this direction, to reinforce the role of the European Commission in this European governance. So we are not just comparing and coordinating early on, we'll also be able to intervene effectively early when things take a wrong turn. On the front of financial stabilization, member states have also eventually acknowledged the degree of interdependence of their economies and have agreed to the establishment of new supervisory authorities and to a detailed crisis prevention framework that we are currently setting up. This will allow us to spot problems much earlier and take decisive action at the right time. It will also mean that banks in the future, if they fail, they will not bring the whole financial system down with them. The European Systemic Risk Board for Macroprudential Supervision and the European Supervisory Authorities for Microprudential Supervision in the 3 important sectors of banking, insurance and securities have already come to existence on the 1st of January. And indeed, it is a distinguished Italian, the first president of the European Banking Authority. A new round of European Union-wide bank stress tests that will be more ambitious than the previous one is being proposed. I believe transparency is essential so that policymakers and investors can make informed judgments, and so is the willingness to follow through with tough, indispensable decisions. A healthy banking system is a prerequisite for a sustainable economic recovery. It is particularly important that small businesses have access to the credit they need to survive and invest and to contribute to growth and job creation. So we are also moving in this issue of the financial stability in the euro area. But in fact, one of the lessons of the crisis is also that we are interdependent globally and that we need rules at a global level. And so it was Europe, I'm proud to say, that took the initiative after the crisis in the markets in 2008, namely the so-called Lehman Brothers crisis. It was Europe that took the initiative to propose rules not only to ourselves but to the world. It was during the presidency of France. Together with President Sarkozy, I went to Camp David. And when we made the following point to President Bush, asking him to convene the first summit of the G20 that effectively took place in Washington and launched this process of the G20 summits. My point was the following. We are for open societies and open economies. But as open societies need rules, the rule of law, open economies need also markets with rules. Markets are themselves an institution. Markets have to respect some rules. And this is the approach that together with some partners, some more than others, we are trying to drive at global level. Ladies and gentlemen, structural reforms and investments promoted under the Europe 2020 strategy can deliver potentially large benefits. Preliminary estimates suggest that an ambitious but realistic strategy of structural reforms combined with budgetary consolidation could increase GDP in the European Union by around 4% and create about 5.6 million new jobs by 2020. These reforms will not only increase the growth potential, but will also lead to positive spillovers on the demand side. Properly designed structural reforms will help the euro area and the European Union as a whole to support domestic demand, reduce intra-euro area imbalances, and increase market flexibility. And by removing obstacles in our single market to mobility of people, workers, services, and investments, we can increase competition, reap economies of scale, promote innovation and enterprise, and so boost growth too. So our agenda, I want to underline, is not just an agenda of consolidation, it's also an agenda for growth, and we have to invest in the new sources of growth. One of the most important sources of growth is, in fact, the deepening of the internal market. In the European Union, we have made a lot of progress in the internal market for goods, but in fact, we are far from having a real internal market for services. The small, medium-sized companies know how difficult sometimes it is to go from one country to another, or even to make business sometimes through the internet. In July, the Commission will come forward with its vision on the new Single Market Act, because I want to insist, the single market is not yesterday's business. We are not just commemorating the single market, but it is the springboard of tomorrow's Europe, fostering competitiveness that is essential for growth. And precisely on this Europe, we can and should do more. Competitiveness is indeed a necessary condition for stimulating growth and job creation, and competitiveness gaps are a real problem for countries with a single currency. Competitiveness and convergence of the economies of the euro area are essential for the viability of a strong and stable euro area to the benefit of the European Union as a whole. As you know, last Friday, euro area leaders have agreed on a pact for the euro, which should be formally adopted at the next European Council. The pact is now fully in line with the treaty, anchored in Europe's institutional framework, and with full respect of the role of the Commission, which will guarantee objectivity and independence in monitoring the efforts of Member States. Why do I insist on the role of the Commission? Not because of any institutional fetishism, but because the Commission is the community institution par excellence that can make, in fact, sure that decisions taken by a group of countries are fully compatible with the treaty. It is our role to ensure compatibility with the treaty, but also that they respect the internal market, they respect the acquis communautaire, and it is also the Commission that can guarantee that decisions taken at 17 will not harm the interest of all the 27 member states. The pact now fits fully with the economic strategy set out for the 27 member states in the annual growth survey, which we have tabled in January. It focuses primarily on matters under national competence. I believe it represents an added value both in terms of policy and in terms of ambition. But it is not, I insist, a parallel exercise. Not only the pact is in line with the treaty rules, but its commitments will be brought into the stability programs and national reform programs assessed by the Commission. It perfectly fits into the European semester. This is a very important agreement because, as you know, when the pact was launched, there were some doubts precisely about these points of governance, and there were some controversies too. I think now we have a good solution. And as you know, we have been for a long time asking member states to commit to a higher level of economic policy coordination and stronger economic governance, especially in the euro area. And this is now being accepted. But not only for the euro area. The pact is open to non-euro area members, if they so wish. The agreement reached on Friday is crucial for the euro area, but I believe it is relevant for the whole of Europe. Europe should not be a closed club. Europe of course, is a process and a project of solidarity among all the member states. And I'd like to thank Italy for the support given to a truly community approach in the consultations that the President of the European Council and myself have made to prepare this pact for the euro. I want to say that the position of Italy and many other member states was very important to have this truly community approach. At the same time, we need to do more to promote growth in the immediate term, especially in parts of Europe where debts are high, economic conditions are weak, and required fiscal adjustment is considerable. In countries where domestic demand is weak, the authorities need to take appropriate measures to stimulate it, not least removing excessive regulation. In countries where exports are weak, governments could rebalance the burden of taxation, shifting taxes off labor and onto consumption and land, thereby boosting exports and jobs. Ladies and gentlemen, as you see, we have come a long way on reinforcing economic governance in the European Union. This is already economic governance in action based on serious commitments on growth, competitiveness, employment, and public finances. This is work in progress, but very relevant work. And it is an amazing progress in European integration in such a short period of time against the backdrop of the crisis. Or perhaps I should rather say, precisely because of the crisis. 60 years ago, the European process was born against enormous odds. Adversity stimulated our predecessors as it is stimulating us now. I really believe that the European Union is at its best when we have to face this kind of challenges. But let's make no mistake, a lot remains to be done. We need to keep the momentum and a sense of urgency to fully deliver on our comprehensive response to the crisis. It's true that now we are reinforcing the missing pillar of the European and Monetary Union. We had a monetary union, but in fact we have not yet really an economic union. And what we are doing now is reinforcing this pillar so that Europe economically can walk on its 2 feet. But I want to underline a point after this long speech on the economy, that this is not just about economies. This is also about our common project. The European Union is a political project. The European Union is a project based on values, values of peace, of freedom, and justice. When my country joined the European Union, it was also to make part of a union where we have these values, that a union that we could not join in the periods before our country was fully democratic. And I think it is important at this moment in time to underline this, the importance of a union based on values, first of all, the value of human dignity, because these are the values that, for instance, the young people, the young men and women of Northern Africa, the Southern Mediterranean, are fighting for. I think at this point in time, we should be proud of everything the European Union has been doing, of the great project of peace, freedom and justice that after the Second World War it is possible to develop in this part of the world. And it is precisely because of that. It is precisely because of the commitment of countries like yours, Italy, a founding member of our community, that has always been in front of the process with a community approach, that I have all reasons, in spite of the difficulties that I know, in spite of the very serious challenges that I perfectly am aware, that I'm still confident that Europe will once again rise to the challenge and be at the level of the expectations of its citizens. I thank you very much for this Doctor Honoris Causa, and I thank you very warmly for your kind attention.